So before we start, I just have one couple of comments. Coming from IIT, we are one of the premier institutes and we are the cream of the society. And we have some of the greatest mottos. And I hope we all can, those are the ideas that we intend to live by. So I'll just quote two of them that I know at the top of my head. One from my alma mater, IIT Bombay. It says, Jnanam Paramam Dhyayam, which is knowledge is the supreme goal. So in this session, we are trying to gain as much knowledge as possible, try to understand the problem. Rajiv ji has put in a lot of effort into this, and Vijay ji has put in a lot of effort into this. They have brought in a lot of information. And like sponge, we just need to absorb as much as we can so we can see what we can do after that. The other motto I'm going to quote is from IIT Madras. It says, Siddhir Bhavati Karmaja, which means success is born out of action. What that means is basically we need to take an action on it. And there are many different types of things. Now, Rajiv ji has put in a lot of effort into this. They're spending a lot of time, money, and resources into this. So if we can help Rajiv ji in any possible way, so he can help us. So I think that'll be one of the significant actions that we can do. And any other actions that are going to follow up, we're going to work further on that. All right, with this, let us start the session. So Rajiv ji, please, to you.
I have to say that I have known this problem for a while, that we've written in this book about the attack on IIT. The basic attack is on meritocracy. The concept of meritocracy is being seen as something which aristocratic people build up over generations because of privilege. So the argument would be like, if somebody is rich or somebody is a capitalist, he owns the means of economic production, so he got more money than the workers who work there, and therefore he can offer his kids a better coaching, better etiquette, better language skills, better all kind of things, and this turns into cultural superiority, sophistication, but actually it's a form of capital because they can use it. They recognize each other who are privileged by their table manners, by the way they shake hands, by the clubs they join, where they're members. So all the aristocrats have built up this kind of a hidden capital, a hidden sort of structures that give them privilege, and these are used to oppress other people who are downtrodden, who don't have access to these things. So therefore, this business of meritocracy is also kind of a sham. Because when you say it's meritocracy, often it is your cultural sophistication, your aristocracy, and even the way questions are framed. They maybe the underclass won't even understand them. Maybe they don't have access to the same coaching. A lot of these reasons are given. So the attack on meritocracy has been going on before attack on IIT, and then IIT. This Ajanta Subramaniam wrote article in 2015, and that means like 8 years ago, 8 years ago. And then the book in 2018 or 19 or something, that also has been 3 years. So I basically used to go to my friends in the Princeton area. Some of them are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, IITians, and celebrated and big, very, very pompous and very kind of proud and all, which is good, which is all very good. But every time I would raise this issue, informally as a friend, that, hey, listen, IIT is facing all this, what about it? They would change the topic. They didn't want to deal with it. They would say, maybe those guys are right. Maybe we have a problem, kind of. And then I started formalizing the study of wokeism to say that this is a product of wokeism. But many of them are actually funding the political candidates in the US who are Indian, who are wokeists. So, it was very difficult for me to convince many of them, or any of them, I would say. And they're all pan-IITians in high standing, and I don't want to mention names because they are friends also. And I don't think it's a problem limited to people in the Princeton area. It's a problem I found everywhere. So this is why when we were doing this book, Snakes in the Ganga, talking about a broad range of breaking India forces, how they're taking using wokeism, artificial intelligence, big data, dismantling, using multilateral organizations like UN, World Bank, or World Economic Forum, and basically dismantling traditions, dismantling nation states, dismantling and we are a main target. Hinduism is a main target. India is a main target. Why isn't China the main target? Because China knows the game and China has reversed the game, playing the game offensively against the United States and not letting the United States get into China internally. So you can see that those countries that have understood this before have defended themselves and turned it into an offense game against others, whereas India is still bumbling around. The government didn't do much about it. I mean, I've talked to some consulates here and there, consul generals. I've talked to the external affairs people. I've been to the Foreign Service Institute, which is in Delhi near JNU, and given talks. Not found too much traction. They all like it. They're all very hospitable. They're very decent, very nice. But at the end of the day, there's no follow-up. There's no follow-up that you feel that you can actually make an impact there. So after going around, talking to a whole lot of people, and also our activists, I must be very honest with you. Some of them are here, but I will be very honest with you. They're also obsolete. They just copy pasting what was done in the Breaking India book a dozen years ago. They just still copy pasting and putting the same thing out there as their own. They're more interested in becoming famous quickly, that they've done all this work, but they haven't really gone into the new stuff. That is what this book is doing. They haven't gone into the new stuff, except maybe one data point here, one data point there, but that's not enough. You have to put all the data points together. You have to make a very comprehensive thesis. You got to go beneath the surface, understand what's going on, which is what Vijay and I did. So now, because I didn't want to spend too much time on the history before this book, when the book came out, we got good traction in India for the first time. I must say, we got very good traction. We're going back in February because so many invites there. And the allegations we're making about against Harvard, especially the centers funded by Indian billionaires, we have heard no response from them, neither from Harvard nor from the billionaires. In fact, Harvard, there's one very eminent professor. He's a Jesuit. He's a senior most in the divinity school, Francis Clooney, expert on Hinduism. I had a very nice event at Harvard, where he was the protagonist, and he supported me, in fact. So, but the social sciences people and liberal arts people and South Asian studies people, those are the guys that are the real problems, and they're sort of silent. Now, recently, what has happened is we've started getting attacks, not from the real big shots, but their underlings. So they put somebody asked Devdutt Patnaik to write some article against us, and he put it out there. Somebody asked this one very junior person, a Westerner, and somebody asked some Indian. So some junior people are beginning to hit out. I mean, these are the small snakes that are putting their head up and hissing and trying to bite. But the real big ones haven't shown up yet. So that is the state of play. We decided that we have limited time to build traction on our side, to educate our people, get tens of thousands of books out there. We've got, the book is out there, 30,000 copies printed out there. And then, e-books available, Kindle and all that. So it's very important that a lot of people get this. A lot of people get a copy of the book. A lot of people understand the message and start talking about it. So this has all happened without just limiting it to IIT. Now,
Rajiv, just give a brief. I don't know how many of these people know about the summary of the book of the IIT issue. If you can just talk about it in like an elevator pitch as to what's going on.
Yeah. No. I just was about to start saying that this is a general overview, but let me now zoom in on IIT. So as far as now I'll talk about IIT. This is just to kind of give you a general background. Yeah. So IIT, basically, there is a theoretical foundation being discussed first on what is wokeism, what is postmodernism, Marxism, critical race theory, critical caste theory, and a whole mapping of caste as race. We've got a whole chapter on that, and who did it in the United States, how it's become a very common thing, from Oprah Winfrey to New York Times bestseller, all of that we've done. And then how there is this Afro-Dalit movement where the Dalits are considered calling themselves, being asked, the Dalits are being tutored to call themselves the blacks of India and to call the non-Dalits as the whites of India and to accuse India of being a racist society in the American sense. And then there is this whole equality labs. We've got chapters on every one of them. Every one of the things I've just mentioned is separate chapters. And that's why it's a big book. And so Equality Labs started this movement. I've known this Saundarya Rajan, ran into her 10 years ago, at Columbia University, I knew that some academic people in the West, white guys, scholars of Hinduism, were really tutoring her, mentoring her to become like a vicious person. And she attacked me personally in public gatherings, like one at Columbia University. We have that on videotape also. So this went on many years ago. So I know about her, and she knows about us. So this Equality Lab, which is what she started, has been, at the front of gathering data, claiming that they are proving that casteism exists in the United States, in organizations, in Silicon Valley, in universities, in governments, and it is a form of racism. And the U.S. racism laws should be applied to casteists, and HR department should have a caste sensitivity workshop. And any lower caste person who accuses should be given the same treatment as blacks in terms of benefit of doubt, protected class. These are very legal terms, protected class. If you're designated protected class, there are many things that happen in the law, American law. For example, if you can apply for Khalistanis in Canada, I just want to digress and tell you, Khalistanis in Canada are eligible to apply for refugee status on the basis that Sikhs in Punjab are being persecuted and their life is in danger. All that is nonsense, because actually the Sikh Jats are among the most prosperous farmers in India, and the Khalistanis are mostly Jats, they're peasants. And so, but they've created this political category called protected class for themselves. And the protected class category was originally developed for Native Americans and blacks, but they applied it to them. And therefore, there is a whole accelerated track to get into Canada as a refugee under some amnesty. And so there's business in it. Lawyers are doing this for their clients. So now if the Dalits were declared a protected class, which is what the game is, their end game is, then any Dalit in India would be able to go to the embassy and say, I'm a Dalit, my life is in danger, and blah, blah, blah. And he will be on a fast track to get into some kind of refugee, like Rohingyas, like Tibetan people have a refugee status. So once the law recognizes certain community as protected class, then they have all these privileges. Also, you cannot criticize them, you cannot attack them. They'll come after you. The benefit of doubt is given to them, and you can be cancelled. You can be cancelled because even if you raise your voice, you can be, or ask good questions, you can be cancelled. So there is this whole cancel culture as part of this. Now I started getting emails from Indians, unsolicited Indians I don't even know, from Google, mainly first I got from Microsoft, then I got from Facebook, then I started getting from Google, saying that there is this kind of thing happening inside their company. They want to know where to go. Some of them tried to talk to the Indian Consul General. He didn't know too much. They've talked to some gurus and some temples. They didn't know too much. So they didn't know where to go. And certainly with the IIT, Pan IIT not adopting it as a problem that they take ownership to do something, these young tech people had nowhere to go. So asking me to do something. So I asked them, whenever something is going on, you give me a report. And one of them from Microsoft said that she sat in on a top level executive briefing workshop on caste, and it was given by Equality Labs, and Satya Nadella was sitting there, and this lady Nirma was sitting there, a lot of white people there, a lot of Indians there, and they were going on and on talking about this casteism, and she felt very insulted. She said it was all wrong, it was all exaggerated, but Satya Nadella didn't say a word. He just sat quietly, and then he quietly left at the end. And later, this lady asked some HR people saying, wasn't there any chance for Q&A? She was told off the record that for your own sake, do not raise your hand, do not argue, because then you'll be considered a racist. You just quietly sit, listen, put up with it, follow it, and then just leave. Don't say anything. So she said that I felt very bad. Why can't we say anything? What is this going on? So I started hearing this from many people, then from Facebook people also. So I made some little secret groups with some people in these organizations. They don't want to show their hand. Many of them are IITians. I would say quite a lot of them are. So this has been going on. And so the attack on IIT directly happened with a book by Ajanta Subramaniam, a Harvard professor, called The Caste of Merit, where she argues that meritocracy is a caste construct. It is a casteist structure, what we call meritocracy. So we are very proud of meritocracy. We are very proud that IIT is, everybody from any caste can come, doesn't matter, nobody knows whose caste it is. It's all based on merit. And then in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, the Indians are firing people based on merit, and H-1Bs on merit. So all of this is subject to now reinterpretation. There's even a move to change the H-1B criteria. So when you go to the US Embassy, you'll be asked about your caste. And just like quota system, if you're a Brahmin, maybe you won't get in, or maybe it'll be very limited. So this is pretty serious stuff. And I figured that the time has come for IITians to stand up and do something. I mean, Vijay and I put our own money in. We put in a lot. I mean, I've been running this for 30 years. Vijay has now joined me, so we are both in this. And we haven't received one penny worth of support from people that we thought should support us. I'm not here to solicit anything. I think I'm here to build bridges and to spread awareness and to win hearts, win friends. That's what I want, is to win friends. Then, of course, we'll worry later about what kind of support people might give us. But I just wanted to say all this so you know that it's a very serious problem. B, it's been getting worse and worse, now accelerating. C, it is something that the IITians haven't done anything about. D, we have worked very hard and we produced this book, but we have a lot more to do. We are also producing another book, which will be only IIT. It'll be like maybe 150 pages, just focusing on the IIT issue. And the idea being that should be translated into Hindi and other languages, because a lot of these engineering people are not English speaking primarily. And this should be in tens of thousands of copies given to every engineering college, every engineering student, not just to the libraries, but to students. Because if the student after graduating, when they go somewhere, they're going to be told, hey, you are a casteist or whatever, they ought to at least be informed that this is what people think, how to respond. So we are not only telling what the problem is. Chapter 6 of this book is 100 pages, which is our history of Varna, Jati, the fluidity of this system and how the system was shaped partly during the Mughal rule, partly during the British rule, partly after independence, how these things have happened, how it is not Hindu per se, it is not a Hindu problem per se. So we have given a 100-page response. So it is like a toolkit. Using that, you can come up with arguments in response to what you hear. Because one of the things that a lot of the young tech people told me when they were briefing me on this problem in the last 2-3 years, they were saying that when we are sitting around and they ask us, they make a statement, we don't have knowledge on what to say. We don't have a toolkit. They have a toolkit, and they come briefed and prepared, and they know what are the 5 things to say to bring us down. We don't have any 5 things to say how to respond. So this is partly what we are doing. What Vijay and I are doing is developing something which is for not only telling people what is going on, which is what I just summarized, but also a toolkit how to answer back. What are some holes in the other side's arguments? What is their big game plan? What are they trying to achieve, and how it's going to be harmful to us? So that is sort of kind of a generic introduction I've given. So now I'll invite Vijaya to add to this, please. Vijaya, so you take it forward.
This attack on the IIT is going to affect everybody. It's just not the IIT. IIT is sort of the canary in the coal mine. Very soon we will see other institutions also getting affected, and education at large. Engineering education at large. Engineering education in India is being studied by Western social scientists. And one of the, obvious, in the name of equity and all of that, one of the obvious intentions seems to be how they can try and dismantle it. So you have Harvard's Ajanta Subramaniam, who's become the dismantler in chief, so to speak. Now, how is it affecting, there are real world problems for all of us. whether you're in the IIT or not. So you have one effect. If you go on the right-hand side top quadrant, you'll see dismantling the IITs as one of the things on the agenda. Then you have India's Chief Justice. We did a whole series of videos talking about how merit itself needs to be redefined. He, in fact, quotes Ajanta Subramaniam and says, we need to use critical caste theory and things like that, and intersectionality and Ajanta Subramaniam's work to see if the JEE, in fact, is a good measure. Should entrance examinations be a criteria? And if merit needs to be redefined, what exactly is merit? And he also essentially is saying that merit is caste capital. And IIT essentially is the apparatus that takes merit that you guys have all inherited somehow. There is no mention of your hard work or your tapas or any of that. So IIT essentially is this machinery which takes this caste capital, converts it into another form of capital that you guys have all used to bring it overseas and then, to trade it. So it's like a currency, like how you convert rupees to dollars. You've converted caste capital to merit, and that merit you're using to get ahead in the world for you, yourselves and your families and your near and dear ones. So that's essentially, and IIT does this. So India's Chief Justice, Supreme Court Chief Justice is already talking about this. Yeah. And how do we change the IITs? How do we change the criteria of entrance into IITs? How do we look at the professors that are teaching in the IITs? Now, further down, if you go to the lower quadrant on the right-hand side, you'll see that the Lakshmi Mittal Family Institute South Asia Studies, where Ajanta Subramaniam's work is also supported. There's a guy called Tarun Khanna. He's an engineer. I'm assuming he's a he's a director of the Lakshmi Mittal Institute, perhaps also an IIT, and I'm not sure. But he conducted a Shanghai meritocracy workshop where they talk about, this happened in China, where the Chinese talked about meritocracy in China, and Indians from Ashoka University and Harvard talked about meritocracy in India and how it is a sham and how it needs to be redefined. Whereas the Chinese were very proud about meritocracy in their country and history of meritocracy, and because they're not going to put up with this. So you see that even China is using this as a tool. So like how you use TikTok, you can use these kinds of tools these days. This is the warfare of today. So Harvard's doing this thing, and Harvard's ideas on meritocracy is already got into Ashoka University, and there are scholars developing these ideas further and spreading these ideas further. So that's one side. And of course, you have on the third side, equality labs. You have the Cisco case, caste as a protected category that Rajiv ji talked about, caste census being taken, caste sensitivity training that you guys have to undergo in your corporate lives. And, and there are anti-caste rallies. So you think, okay, you're going to pretend at work and sort of get by. It's coming to your children as well. So children in colleges in like UPenn and places like that are told to be allies. So gone are the days where you can just virtue signal and say, yeah, we've all been terrible and let's move on, and we need diversity. But it's coming, there are these caste sensitivity training require more out of you. They require you to be an ally, which means actively participating in being an ally means actively participating in the advocacy of these caste sensitivity ideas. So your children are told that okay, if you want to be an ally, you need to reject your parents because your parents are castes, and you need to actually, that's how you become an ally. So these are, it's coming home to bite all of us if we keep quiet. Because I think Indians have just sort of been quiet and don't want to be in controversy. But I think the time has come where you really have to choose sooner or later. The sooner we take part in all these things, the earlier we can, change or hold our own narrative, whatever that might be. So I'll stop there, and I see some hands up. So
I want to Mohanji, can I just say 1 or 2 minutes more? Yeah.
Yes,
because I think it flows nicely. So based on what Vijay said, I'm going to tell you more. I'm going to tell you what is coming. Okay, we've not just looked at what has happened. There is this gay parade and this LGBTQ day and all that. This is going to happen with caste also. You're going to see a caste anti-casteism day. sort of like happening in New York City and San Francisco. You will see it spreading to different cities. You will see kids being told to write an essay, lambasting castists. You will see, this a special day of the year being designated to sort of, celebrate the rejection of caste. All of this embarrassing Hindus and Indians. This is coming, and this is coming because the antidote to this, the movements that ought to have been built, we've been trying informally to warn people, but we've just been sitting around. The people who got the resources haven't really put in those resources to work. So individuals can do only so much. So I'm just warning you that this is coming. I'll also tell you that juries, if you are unlucky enough to be a defendant in a court case and there's a jury, right now, if you're a white guy, the jury is stacked against you. You're going to find that something similar if you're a Hindu. You're going to find that juries are going to have, people are going to have a bias. There is also another thing that's happened. This is not something that the people who are into it directly want to publicize too much, but let me just give you a little bit of it. The whole attack on Bap's temple in Swaminarayan, but Bap's temple in New Jersey, it's not some mysterious people who showed up, and it is all part of this. And the people who funded it, we know who are the folks who have funded it, and who are the folks who've been hired to front it. And it turns out that Bap's is on pretty solid ground legally in terms of the direct attack. But the investigators, the feds, are really hounding, looking for something. So there is also an infiltration into the kind of official machinery in the United States. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. This is only beginning, but more is going to happen. So not wanting to sound an alarmist, but wanting to alert that if left alone, these things are going to get worse rather quickly. Thank you.
Dhanyawad, Rajiv ji and Vijay ji. So we'll start with the question and answers, but there's a raised hand. Malik ji from IIT Madras, if you could just keep your comment under 1 minute.
Yeah, I just want to mention Ajanta did interview me in November of 2015, and she did talk about it because she has come to know that I was from IIT Madras, first batch and all that. But I think I know based upon the premise that she has done, I don't know how to refute it. We never felt it when we were the students over there, and then maybe, but also later on, subsequently, IIT Madras had some legal issues and all of that. But I think this need to be addressed in some fashion.
Right. Dhanyawad, Malik ji. So we'll go with the questions that were.
Mohanji, just to answer that, we've given a big rebuttal to Ajanta Subramaniam in our book, and we will also do that in the new book that we bring. But the Snakes in the Ganga has a huge section devoted to rebutting what her thesis is, and then a rebuttal of it.
All right. Okay, so going to the questions that were submitted with the registration, is Shishir Mittalji here from IIT Bombay? All right, so we'll move to the next one. Is Srinivas Sonti from Madras, IIT Madras?
Yes.
A question? Yeah, please.
Yes. So Rajiv ji, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very glad to be part of this, and thank you for your time. Just this is something that I was just making a comment right in the very beginning. If we are pouring in billions and billions of dollars into these institutes, why we should have the power to even change their mindset into how they behave and what they do, right? And why is it that not happening? And what can we do to actually convince our so-called billionaires who are supporting these institutes like Harvard to change their way of thinking and actually, in a way, convert to our way of thinking?
You see, it's always good to learn from others, their good practices. So while China is totalitarian domestically and India is democracy, and I'm not trying to convert India into a totalitarian state domestically, but as far as foreign policy is concerned, foreign policy wise towards the US, towards India, towards Harvard, I mean, their policy is very targeted. They have a good game plan and agenda. The government the government firstly has a policy, and then it briefs its billionaires. There are so many Chinese billionaires who funded Harvard, but they are always, no Chinese funded chair or center is talking about the Uyghur Muslim problem or the Tibet problem or democracy in China problem or human right problem or whatever, COVID, they don't talk about it. They're not allowed to talk about it. China basically says, to hell with you. You guys don't know enough about our country. You just keep shut. We want to get STEM knowledge. We want to get technology, quantum computing, AI, medicine, engineering. So they are targeting what they need out of Harvard. Now, the similar thing would be if Mahindra said that he wants to understand better automobile engineering, maybe he fund the engineering school, or Mittal says that he needs more, metallurgy or some whatever for his industry. At least they'll know how to evaluate. It will not be easy to make a fool out of them. Whereas Mahindra, having hired one of the top 2 or 3 postmodernist scholars in the world and made him a director, and he is a known India basher and Hindu basher and all of that. He's given many interviews against India and against the Indian government and all that in Indian press. Having hired such a guy as a director, then obviously he's going to staff it with people of that kind. And Mahindra probably doesn't know what the hell is going on. He ought to know. If it is not his area of expertise to understand postmodernism or liberal arts or Marxism or critical race theory, that's not his expertise. His expertise is making cars. So I am surprised that the Indian government hasn't stepped in. I'm surprised at the lack of leadership on the part of the Indian Council of Cultural Relations. Sahasra Buddheji is the head of that, and that's part of Ministry of External Affairs. And they're supposed to talk about cultural relations overseas. They should have created this kind of a book. They should, even now, they are reluctant to have Vijay and me go and speak at the embassy. We should be conducting workshops. They should be inviting us to do that. And they should be holding these workshops in Delhi so that we can brief the industrialists. So you see, the government can play a role, which they haven't wanted to. They just don't want to touch this. It's like nobody wants to touch this problem. IITian leaders haven't wanted to touch it. The ministry doesn't want to touch it. Who's going to take it at a high level? It needs to be somebody at a high level needs to listen to us, first of all. So the reason the problem has happened.
Maybe then the solution is for us commoners to actually identify who are in the government places and then maybe write letters or talk to them. So
Yes.
there's a huge crowd that actually.
So the first thing you can do is take a bunch of copies of this book and send it. People cannot refuse when it's something big like this. They have to, and you send a 5-page, a 2-page note from your own side saying these are the reasons you should read it. 1, 2, 3, 4. People take note of it. So that you send them something that they have to take note of. Send it in this country, send it in India. People have to take note of it. People should. I was hoping that by now there'll be people making a petition, sending copies of this to the industrialists who are named. A lot of industrialists have been named. It's not just Mittal and Piramal and Mahindra, but also Bajaj and the Tatas. There's all kind of fellows named.
PTM head, Sharma, all of them.
There are people here in New York who made a lot of money in the Wall Street and various things like that, and they're all in this game. So the public has to shame them too. We cannot legally. There's nothing illegal we found. You see, if a Indian billionaire wants to give his hard-earned money to whoever for whatever cause, it's up to him because that's his money. I can't stop him, and we're not trying to stop them, but we can expose it so that people like you will take it further. And it's not just 2 of us, but it's going to be a larger number of people making them feel embarrassed and questioning them, putting them on the defense and saying, now, why did you do this? What did you get out of it? What is the impact on your country? And things like that.
The other thing also I'd like to add, Rajiv, right here is in your own offices, I'm sure you guys are all in good positions in management. And one of the things, when you come up with these diversity, equity, inclusion trainings is to come up with this as well, right? As it takes a lot of courage. It's very difficult to do. But if enough Indians, gang up and say, hey, this isn't fair and we need a voice, I think that takes courage and that has impact as well to take this on. Take this on.
A lady I know, and I don't want to name her because I'm still trying to win her over, here in the Princeton area, who's considered one of the pioneers of the whole DEI movement, the whole diversity, because being an ethnic, a non-white, being an Indian, she championed this like 25 years ago, and she came up with she's very highly educated. She put it in the Wall Street, some of the big firms, financial firms. And then her protege, a younger, also an Indian, she trained. This younger person is a very dear friend of ours. And again, I don't want to name, but she's on the board of several Fortune 50 companies as sort of the DEI head. Okay, so now they are taking this whole wokeism and in the hoping to help, blacks and American minorities, they put this in the door. Now what they don't know, I've confronted them. I've said, now you open this thing, you created a foundation. Now the critical caste theory has entered, DEI, and the caste people are saying that this is also a protected class of people, and Brahmin privilege and upper caste privilege should be subject to cancel culture, should be considered white supremacy. Now, what's your plan? So I've confronted them, and I've done it very politely and courteously and privately. They do not know what to do. They're no mood to listen. They feel that it's better to just duck their head. So I think we have our own people to blame also. We have the Ro Khannas of the world and the Pramila Jaipals of the world who've been elected by Indians. I mean, I'm not getting into politics here. The fact is that a lot of Indians have funded these kind of things. So where do you start? I mean, it's not only the government, it's not only, the gurus haven't done a darn thing, it's IITians haven't done a darn thing, but it's our own random rich people all over the place who funded these kind of organizations. And our activists have been scattered, each one trying to become famous, climbing on each other's shoulders. And it hasn't been possible, it hasn't been easy for Vijay and I to start a movement and get our activists behind us and say, okay, now let's streamline the support. Somebody takes the lead and does something. Other people should help turn it into, mobilization. It's very difficult to organize our people. This is the problem. The Chinese are very super organized, and we are not. We are sort of everybody scattered in their own way. That's the problem as I see it.
There are a couple of raised hands, but there's a related questions. I thought we'll just go with that and then come back to Atulji and Krishnaji. So we have Narendraji Joshi from IIT Bombay, who has kind of related questions. So Narendraji, under 1 minute, we can go with your question.
Rajivji, have you attempted meeting any major industrialists like Mittal or Murthy who donated to Harvard to basically ask them why they donated and what are the implications that are coming out of their donations for the country? And if you have made, what has been their response?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked. So it's written in our book, but I'll tell you, in 2010-ish, around even before, because I've been giving these talks for 30 years. I have PowerPoint slides, I go around giving. So Mr. Guru Murthy, who's a friend, in fact, this morning only we exchanged messages back and forth. And so long ago, he said, Rajiv, what you are saying is very important, that you should explain it to Anand Mahindra. So I said, I don't know him. He said, don't worry, I'll introduce you. So we were in Chennai when this conversation happened. He called up Anand Mahindra, fixed an appointment. So to answer your question, yes, I went to Mumbai, thanks to Guru Murthy, had an appointment to spend quality time with Anand Mahindra. Very decent man, very nice person. In his headquarters, we had lunch together. I showed him my PowerPoint slides. He had all this equipment there, and he was waiting for me to give him some detailed stuff. I left a hard copy with him. He ignored it. He was very nice to me. And before I learned, a couple of years, a little bit later, he's starting funding them and set up this Mahindra Center and whatnot. So I guess that was more important to him, but he can't say that no one told me privately. And after that, one of his right-hand men who was reporting to him, who's now retired, was a dear friend of mine since school days. We've known each other as family and school friends. And I've always been telling this guy what I'm up to and what Mahindra is up to, why it's no good. So even indirectly through his one of his top vice presidents, executive vice presidents, he's been kept informed of what all my concerns are. But did no effect on him. As far as Piramal is concerned, when Modi was likely to get elected, and as a rising star, a year before the actual election, I got a call from Ganesh Arnal, who in Mumbai used to do all my events and organize. He was well-connected guy in the financial industry. And so he would do, he knew people and he would organize talks and all that. So he calls me and says that Ajay Piramal has called me and want to know if you're in town, and he heard you're in town and he wants to see you. And you should see him. He's very important. So I said, who's Ajay Piramal? I mean, sorry for the ignorance, but I didn't know who these guys are in India. And I was just busy doing my work. So I went to Ajay Piramal's, the Piramal Tower, very beautiful place and nice, great, big, huge, very expensive, all these arts from, Hussein and all kind of great artists, important artists in India, I suppose. Very nice, hospitable. These guys are so decent and smooth and warm. And he called me to understand me better because he heard of me as a somebody intellectual or whatever. I gave him the same presentation. I left hard copy with him. And he said, oh, very interesting, very interesting. I left some books I had done. And then I heard nothing. Then a couple of 2-3 years later, I took the initiative and said, I want to meet him to give him an update. Things are getting more serious. I went, he was again available, no problem. And I briefed him. So twice I have briefed him in his headquarters. And he cannot say that he didn't know about these things. Mittal, I haven't briefed personally in this way, but I met him in Trinidad. There was this Hindu Congress, it's like 20 years ago, a Hindu conference of some kind. And I was there, he was there, and we were together and I briefed him all these things. He sat, in fact, the host there's one Swami Chidanand from Rishikesh. He brought me to brief Mittal and a few other very big shots. And we sat in a special, somebody's, I think it was Mittal only owned that property or one of them who did. And I gave a briefing for an afternoon. It was over lunch. I gave a briefing of what is going on. This is like 18 years ago because I've been into this for a long time. And they all hear you, but something prevents them from taking this matter seriously. They're still into what is in it for them, their own selfish, maybe their business deal is that you are in the good books of Harvard, you sit on the board of directors with prestigious American billionaires, and it's good for your business. Maybe your kids will get into Harvard. Maybe it's good for your brand name in India. Whatever it is, it seems that despite their patriotism, display of Indian patriotism in India, when it comes to their dealings with Harvard, they are not able to give that priority over their personal what they want to do. So all I can say is, I don't want to accuse them, but it would not be unreasonable if it turned out that it's all selfishness. So but at the same time, I want to tell you that I have no evidence or no desire to accuse them on a personal level, because I have no basis for that. All I'm saying is, billionaire is party number one, funds Harvard, party number two, and Harvard sets up a chair or a center in the name of this billionaire, and that they appoint a director, that's party number three. And this director hires a whole staff of people, faculty here and there, that's party number four. And then they organize a conference every year, every month, they have lectures, whatnot, and the people who come and speak are party number five. Now, it's party number five who are the snakes, who are coming and doing all this stuff. So party number one could say, I gave this money, there's all this pipeline in between, and I don't know what they did, and I don't know who these people are, and maybe they're saying bad things, I don't know. They might be able to wash their hands off. But that's kind of cop out. It is, the buck stops with them because it's their money and it's their name, and they have to take some responsibility. So that's my position. Although I have no dirty linen on them personally, I'm only concerned with the output being done in their name by Harvard.
Just a quick comment and question. See, what otherwise looks like a noble cause is like helping, including LGBTQ, etc. In that garb, it seems to me that these theories are very poisonous, with long-term hazardous effect on all of the civil society and us. Correct me if I'm wrong. These are flowing into India in a big way. Supreme Court justices, intercellars, etc., etc. You said, what should we do about it? In a sense, what can we do to put pressure on our leaders back in India, people who matter, and what can they do at the individual level, and what can they do as an organization, as a team, whatever you can say in here. So thought I'll open it up.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So first of all, how is it going to India? It's not just Chandrachud, Supreme Court guy. Microsoft India is going to enact the policies of HR which they have in Microsoft headquarters. If Microsoft headquarters has a policy on caste as race, and there has to be workshop on caste sensitivity, and there has to be quota system, and they have to have a special trained person in the Dalit trained in the HR department who will listen to all the complaints. If it is happening in the United States headquarters, then certainly it's going to happen in the subsidiary in India. For you can sure, all of this thing that is taking on the reason Silicon Valley is a target is that when you put your people into the DEI department of the HR, in headquarters, and they start hiring certain kind of people, not hiring certain kind of people, investigating certain things, giving certain kind of workshop. When they start these practices here, they will be echoed in India. You will have Google India, Microsoft India, Facebook, and Amazon, and Apple. You'll have the ones who are TCS is doing outsourcing. They got tens of thousands of people outsourcing for American clients. They'll be told, as an outsourcing organization, they'll be told that you got to have labor policies which are friendly, which are America friendly, and which are Dalit friendly, because this is our corporate ethos. Just like there is sustainability. Now if the headquarters says we have a sustainability policy, then if they're buying some equipment from a foreign country, they got to make sure that it is done in a sustainable way. Otherwise, they'll be accused that you are exporting the pollution. You are sustainable at home, but you are buying this stuff from somebody else in another country where there is not sustainability policy. So it takes only a little bit of time, little bit of delay. Once something happens in the headquarters, the same policies have to happen in the subsidiaries. So India will be right in the IT industry, will be attacked in this, which is, people think that the casteism has entered, quota in the school, in the colleges and all that. But imagine it enters the whole tech industry, pharmaceutical industry, financial industry, automobile industry. I mean, this is coming, and it is not going to be 5-10 years. It is coming very, very soon. So first of all, India needs to know this. I don't know why India people are still sleeping. They don't want to deal with this. They need a wake-up shot, So now what can we do is you guys can join Vijay and me and expand our the visibility of this work, be a force multiplier. We need let's say we take this book we are writing, the 150-page book which is focusing on this whole issue of IITs, and another 150-page book which is our response to this allegation of caste in general. So let's say we had enough resources, we would put out 20, 30, 40,000 copies, put it out in a little video form, a documentary, put it out in Hindi, put it out in Kannada and Tamil, and flood it with let our point of view go everywhere. I mean, it's a matter of funds only. We would, within our game plan in the next 3 to 6 months, would be to take this work and turn it into small works, more easily readable. This big one is like a user manual, a toolkit, but make a smaller versions for targeted readers, and create a very large print run and inexpensive, and flood the market, and then go around giving workshops in all these places, so that while the equality labs type people are giving their workshop, we should be giving a counter workshop also. But that requires funding, and that just requires us to have a force multipliers, because there's only so much 2 individuals can do. So that is what I think people like you could consider. I mean, I don't want to pressure anybody, but I would say that is something, that is the least that the IITians could be doing.
So we'll go with another question that people had put in the registration form before you go back to Krishnaji again after that. So let's go with, is Ravi Shankarji here? Only one question under 1 minute. So Ravi Shankarji from IIT Madras.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajivji. Your work is just unbelievable, the focus and all of that. So my question is, I consider Adi Shankara as my role model and a mentor, and he dealt with the situation where there was a lot of poison. And so rather than try to change a snake and change mindset, which is very, very difficult to change people's mindsets, I'm thinking of a movement that will be bigger, like because to change a human being like a Sahasrabuddha or anybody else is hard. Even all of us have our own preconceived notions. So what if we use all our energy to create a much bigger positive line that caste is basically not it's based on hard work, and really do something positive? Because as an author myself, 80% of the people don't read books, but they will join a movement. So I would like you to comment on creating movements that all of us join. Let the snakes be snakes. Let's create more Gangas, if I will, right? So
Yeah.
I would like to really, because books nobody reads. I know this as an author. I've traveled all over the world. Let's create a movement and draw a bigger line. That this line that we are dealing with, don't try to erase it. Make
So-
the line smaller.
So you see, first, okay, books are important because even though 90% of the people will not read the books, they need training material. The training material has to come from a book, so it is authoritative, it can be substantiated. Even the 1% who want to go and check the facts need a book to check the facts. So we need that book even for those who are the serious thinkers, so that and the people who don't read the book like to know that there is a book. There is a book. If I need it, I'll go. It's like a safety raft, like a safety net. I know that there is this book and it has got all these things in it and has got hundreds of references. And if I get into an argument and they challenge me, I'll go look it up and give the answer. 99% of the time I don't need it, but it's there if I need it. So that's a safe psychological morale booster to our people, that this is all backed by research. It is not just demagoguery, because if demagoguery would be enough, there are plenty of manthans and groups going on and people shouting, screaming. That is the difference between a scholar and an activist. A scholar can substantiate what he has done with solid evidence and arguments, and an activist is basically emotionally trying to rabble rouse and raise people. So you do not want activism which is not on a foundation of scholarship. It's a two-tier system. So at the foundation, you do need the books. After all, Ajanta Subramanian's book is a very heavy book, and the books by this Wilkerson and a book by this Yende, they're all Harvard type books. And on the books they built activism. The activism is on top of the books. The legal action is on top of the books. So the legal action, like this California people who have filed this case on against this Cisco, they are referring to these books only. This Chief Justice is referring to the books only. So that is one level. Now, what we need at the next level are simpler books, which is what we are now making. And then the simpler books, even smaller pamphlets. And then what we need are these videos for training purposes. If you want to have a movement, you need training material. You cannot be personally present and physically train all the people who are going to join you. You need audio-visual online training material. So it is taking a book, making a small book, making a smaller pamphlet, translating all this into various languages, and making videos, having workshops. I would like that if we can create this audio-visual material, we would like to go next time and do 20 workshops. Because then we can do our job quickly. If you go to different cities and get thought leaders and activists together in a day each, you can train a large number of people. So that is how the movement has to be done. We have to have material to train other leaders. That because we need thousands of leaders to create lakhs of followers. That is how we have to do it.
Rajiv, and one more point, speaking of Adi Shankara and also the requirement of a book, Rajiv, you might want, we have a track record of a success story from Columbia University's Adi Shankara chair. And Rajiv, if you could just briefly talk about how that came into being and how we successfully stopped it.
Yeah, the Shankaracharya Mutt of Shringeri, the person, Gauri Shankar, who is the administrative head, without informing the Shankaracharya, he signed an MOU with Columbia University. One of the nastiest Hindu-phobic professors, Sheldon Pollock, under which many chairs would be set up, funded by the Indian billionaires. All these Wall Street type people were funding $5 million to $10 million per chair. One was going to be in Colombia, then they would do it in other places. And this would get they would be the custodians of the future legacy of Adi Shankara. They would be teaching around the world. They would be producing new sadhus, new swamis, new pandits, because they would be the ones taking over and globalizing Adi Shankara. But I was very concerned that their idea of Adi Shankara is very negative. Their idea is very full of toxins. Very negative view on Adi Shankara, on Sanskrit, on the Shastras, on our Itihas, all of that. And Sheldon Pollock is a known Marxist and not very friendly to us, but he is very good at Sanskrit. He happens to know Sanskrit. So this was a MOU signed up. And within 90 days, they were going to get all the money in, and this would be announced in Columbia University. All the big shots, all the politicians and celebrities would come in a gala event, and then the game would be over for us. So I had 90 days to intervene. And I tried to send faxes and emails to the Shankaracharya, but they would all be intercepted. No, not one of them reached him, is what I found out later. Then somebody whose late father used to be right-hand man supporting the Shankaracharya of Chingeri, she called me and said, we know that our family knows Shankaracharya, we'll get you in privately. You come over to Bangalore, we'll take you there in the privately. It'll be through the side door. Nobody will block you. Nobody will know you're coming, and we will escort you. And then you'll have a briefing with him, and then you tell him, and you can change his mind. And this is very important. So I went, and this lady from Chicago, Rama Shankar is her name. I mean, she's now moved back to Bangalore. Her sister and sister's son, they arranged my private meeting with Shankaracharya. It was such that it's like a spy novel. I had to go through the side door. They said there'll be little kutia, there'll be some man there, and you go to his house, and he will know, he'll be expecting you, and he'll take you to the Shankaracharya through the side door and all that. So that is how I, without telling the establishment, because they would block me, they would cancel my visit, this is how I met the Shankaracharya. And what was supposed to be a 10-15 minute meeting went on for a couple hours because I gave him a lot of briefing. So I used the word Purva Paksha. I said Adi Shankara did Purva Paksha and debate with opponents. So nobody here has done Purva Paksha of Sheldon Pollock. We don't know, we haven't done a Purva Paksha to figure him out. Nobody in your organization has done that. Why are you giving all these rights to him and turning over the whole adhikar to these guys in Colombia just because they talk nicely? But actually you need to do Purva Paksha and find out that they're very against and anti our tradition, anti Vedas. So I said, please give me a little bit of time. Please delay this 90-day thing. So Adi Shankara, Shankaracharya was very receptive. And so he delayed the signing of the actual launch of the chair. And I got a little bit of time. This is how I wrote this book called The Battle for Sanskrit. Please go and look up the book. It is not a useless book. It saved the Shankaracharya Mutt from being taken over, from being hijacked. So I did this book. It's a 450 or page or something like that, called The Battle for Sanskrit. And that book is for, even if only one copy were printed, and that one copy went to Shankaracharya himself, and it did the job of stopping this from happening, that would make my life worth it. It is a huge thing that the Shankaracharya Matthas and the other Matths did not get hijacked the way they were planning, and we only had 90 days. So that is the power of scholarship. The scholarship was so solid that we produced that Shankaracharya himself decided that he's not going to proceed with this. So that's a success story, and we have many such success stories. If there's tell you what all we've achieved through our scholarship.
Yeah. No. I'll just make a comment and I'll finish. Other people are there. My point is very simple. We can write about COVID or develop a vaccine. I really want to help you develop a vaccine, because we can write about COVID all day long. The people will not change. I want to work with you. All of us can help you to build a vaccine, so we vaccinate 1 million people, 1 billion people to address.
Using that metaphor, before you build a vaccine, you need to do research.
No, I'm not saying don't do it, but I think if you just do that, we cannot solve the problem in front of us. Like look what Moderna did. They didn't talk about COVID. They just solved the damn problem. So my humble request is, what can we do to vaccinate?
Wait a second. I disagree that they got up one morning and said, let's just build a vaccine. The mRNA technique has been a matter of research for 10 years. It has been patent after patent after patent, filing research papers. If you look at how much research has gone before the vaccine development started, it is many, many years, many, many patents, many, many FDA applications, many scientists approving it. It is a result of all that produce this. So and also Ravindraji is right in his note. Social problems are different in the sense that there is no one vaccine and a place you get FDA approval and everybody will take it. Social sciences require consensus building. Consensus building means that the media has to be on your side, the think tanks have to be on your side, the government policymakers have to be on your side. So if you want to transform social policy on social justice and things like that, you should look at social movements that have worked. So for example, there's a social movement on climate. Look at what have they done in the last 30 years. Now, what has the climate change movement achieved in the last 30 years? What has the LGBTQ movement achieved in the last 30 years? Because they're now mainstream. What has the Black Lives Matter movement achieved? They created something called critical race theory. That is a very serious piece of scholarship they've done. Social changes, social transformations don't happen like, you invented a vaccine in your backyard and you go around giving millions of injections and everybody will shift over and become Advait Vedantin and be singing Vasudeva Kutumbakam tomorrow morning. There's no Vasudeva Kutumbakam vaccine that you could develop.
So Rajiv ji and Vijay ji, first of all, let me applaud you for bringing awareness, about some of these issues to all of us. I have a question. These battles are very hard to fight. They're uphill battles, particularly when our own resources are being used to work against us, right? So I'm just trying to understand how we can persuade some of our own billionaires to not be funding these things. I can understand them wanting a seat at the table at Harvard or any other place, and may have some money to throw around, but they ought to be able to wield a little more influence in terms of what these things put out with all of that money. And if they're unable to do it, is it because there is a bigger foe acting from the shadows and that's directing some of these efforts that they are unable to stand up to? And what do we do? So the first thing, it would seem, we can just try to come up with defenses and all kinds of material, but if there is this barrage of money just pouring into these efforts, it'll be an ongoing battle towards no productive end, right? So is there a way we can perhaps persuade our own billionaires, one, to stop funding or to better direct their funds to unproductive uses of this kind? And two, if they still want to do it for whatever their reasons, can we identify what those other forces are? And two, but perhaps they can be persuaded to provide some money to efforts such as the Infinity Foundations when they're actually trying to put up a defense. That's all. They should have some interest in these matters as well.
Successful people want to they have achieved a comfort zone. They have worked hard. They've achieved a comfort zone. They're very well settled. And so they don't want to stick their neck out of their comfort zone. They have no reason to. In one sense, I did that because I was very comfortable. I was doing extremely well 30 years ago. In the prime of my life, I decided I don't want to sit in the comfort zone and just keep making more money. I quit everything and jumped into something which is very risky for me. And I did that. But very few people are willing to stick their neck out when they've already achieved success working so hard. So why the IITians aren't there? I would say the successful ones don't want to risk anything. They don't want to be seen. Some of them are actually leftist. A lot of IITians are very radical leftists. I've come across IITians who argue in favor of Ajanta Subramaniam, in favor of these wokeists, in favor of equality labs. I know IITians who will actually argue like that also. So there's that kind of IITian who's actually leftist and wokist. Then there's the IITian who may be privately a good Hindu, dharmic fellow and all, but publicly he doesn't want to get out of his comfort zone. And then there are those who do want to, do something about it. They're very concerned, but they are in a small minority. Unfortunately, they also are often very scattered. rather than doing something, joining somebody who's taken the lead, they will say, why don't you do this instead? Why don't you do that instead? So at the end of a lot of conversations, a lot of discussions, nothing really happens. What you have is just a lot of brainstorming. So that has been my experience. But Vijaya, do you want to answer the main question?
I think part 4 of our book, we talk about how going along with woke ideology in terms of DEI and ESG and all of that is a sort of hush money to keep the woke crowd to get their support and to keep them off the backs of the billionaires. Usually the far left is always against capitalists, but this is a sort of hush money. So part 4 of the book, we talk about a bigger agenda here. And even in the US, you have many people, if you read a young, bright Indian entrepreneur by the name of Vivek Ramaswamy, who talks about how this whole ESG movement came about and how BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, it's not any conspiracy theory, these are all well-known facts, that they push corporate governance into adopting ESG criteria and not just stick to their fiduciary responsibility of making a profit for their investors. So these are all big issues even in the US. Letting the woke crowd into business, and ESG, as we mentioned in the very last part of our book, is one of the ways that companies are paying hush money to the woke crowd. And under ESG comes DEI, and so these billionaires and millionaires, all of them are, when they fund Harvard, it's actually signaling that they are supporting these sorts of initiatives, and it keeps them out of the radar of the woke crowd. So please read part 4 of the book, and you can understand more.
So we'll move with one other question from the ones who have submitted much earlier. Is Shishirji in the group? Shishirji Mittal from IIT Bombay. All right, or do we have, let us see if Sandeep Jeswani from IIT Guwahati. Sandeep Jeswani. All right, in that case, I have one question. Yeah, please go ahead with your question.
I'm here.
Keep it under 1 minute.
Yeah. So, Namaste, Rajiv ji. So you have often spoken about the idea of the poison pill, and this caste is clearly a huge problem, and I could not have imagined it will take this shape in US. So is there a poison pill here? And particularly the fact that there are castes not just in Hindus but also in Muslim and Christian society in India, that seems to me as a poison pill.
So you're right. You understood what I've been doing. The poison pill idea, for those who don't know, is in one of my previous books as a strategy where we can take their thesis and put poison against them and send it back to them. And I've explained in other places how we can do that. So a poison pill for caste, using caste against them, is something Vijay and I are discussing, which is a lot of examples we are coming up with Christianity, particularly Christianity in India, where the same argument about Dalits and about oppression and about old structures and all that could be used to dismantle church. You could argue the same way to dismantle church. And so we want to have done a lot of good solid homework and produce this. And if you talk too much about it, we have activists who go and start making noise and claiming it this here and there, and then it will subvert our effort. So we just don't want to talk too much, but we will develop some good poison pill. This is just one example, but we have several ideas of poison pill that we want to prepare. We do.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a few more questions that have been submitted, and we'll go over those first, and then we'll come back to you, Maliki, later. So there's one question from Shailaji from IIT Bombay. You want to go next?
Hi, Rajiv ji. This is Shailesh here. I just wanted to know whether is there any merit in making an ally on the other side of the Ivy League, the woke crowd. For example, say University of Texas or something like that. or is there any cons to that? I mean, is there any disadvantage to that approach?
Well, no, I've argued. I keep arguing with the woke crowd. Here in Princeton, there are a lot of woke people. I've given them a lot of. The point is, there are many advantages in engaging opponents. Sometimes you win them over because some of them are not very solidly established in the opposing side. Nobody's come from our side giving them the argument. When you give them the argument in a room of 10 people, few of them will come to your side. It's very slow, but it works. So that is one reason. The other reason is that you test your arguments against opponents. Your arguments become better and better the more you use them in front of other people, especially if they are outnumbering you and they're trying to outshout you and all that. Then you understand what works, what doesn't work, how to counter them. So I'm always doing this. This is an active part of what I've been doing for a long time. So yeah, and I've had some meetings here in Princeton area with exactly those kind of people you're talking about, and it's quite fruitful. But I don't think there's a sort of a one home run that you can sort of come up with this Pfizer vaccine or Moderna and just give it to all these million wokists, and next morning they'll get up and we'll be fine. I don't know of any treatment of that kind.
I just want to clarify a little bit about Shailesh's question. I think this question is more about should we seek alliances with establishments that are opposed to the woke crowds and the IITs? There are already those, and is there a potential allies, or are there more? No. Is it worse than actually just fighting the Ivy Leagues ourselves?
No. Opposed to the woke crowd. I didn't hear that. Okay, that is good. There is a University of Austin that is anti-Harvard. It's a billionaire who set up, Peter Thiel set it up. And the person who wrote my foreword, Peter Boghossian, is one of the founding faculty of that. He's a founding faculty. He's in that crowd. So we're working with those people also. It will take time because, there's a long history of antagonism between the right wings of the world. I mean, the right wing of one country and the right wing of another country, the conservatives of the world have a long history of combatism and animosity. Now they have a common enemy because the global left is a common enemy of all the right wings, So now there is some people on the Christian right who want to work with us. And that's why I had a very successful meeting at Harvard. And my entry point was not the social sciences. It was the religion department, the divinity school. And they were very interested in a further. I'm probably going to go back to Harvard and have a bigger event. Vijay and I will have a bigger event at the divinity school in the next few months. So there are such strategic allies who also not Indian, but who also have a gripe against wokeism. Another one is I'm meeting some people in Washington, D.C. Some of your group here, present here, are introducing me to people in Washington, D.C. They're Chinese people who hate the Chinese Communist Party. They're kind of dissidents living in this country, and they want allies, and we're going to work with them. So we are finding such people also.
Right. Dhanyawad Rajivji. So I have one more question. This is from, I see that Prasannaji from IIT Bombay, he is logged in. So Prasannaji, you want to go with it?
Yes. Namaste, Rajivji. Thank you for this session. My question is coming from people who don't appreciate the importance of this. They are not necessarily woke or leftists, but what are the consequences of this narrative, or us not opposing this narrative? How will it affect the IIT operation, entrance, or alumni relations?
Well, the thing is that if the American companies start taking action on the presumption that Indians are basically biased people, and the DEI department should clamp down and make suspects out of them, and bring down their merit-based success, that'll flow into India. That'll flow into the H-1B policy, of visas. It'll flow into and then there'll be pressure on the government, and that maybe these IITs are too casteist, and some ministry may try to appease people by putting some kind of more. Already there are quotas that are available for local Dalits. Dalits have quota. I mean, it's like SC, ST quotas exist. It's not like we've already done that. But to what extent they might make it even worse, I don't know. Maybe quotas on faculty also. So I don't know where this could go. That I don't know. But it's already the temperature is pretty hot on.
Rajiv, I'd just like to add there that in this new IIT book, we'll show how this is an agenda to dismantle all STEM institutions. So if you're an IIT person that is not interested, you will soon find that it'll affect your children. It's coming to K to 12 education in some way. So it'll get you. And like I said in the beginning, the time is over where you can just virtue signal and not participate, because it's coming for the family. There are efforts to dismantle the family. There are efforts to confuse children on gender ideology. So these are all coming. You may not know it, but it's already there. And it's coming to India as well. So it'll come to get you one way or the other. So I think sooner or later. So it's just a matter of time.
I'm here, Mohanji.
Yeah, so Sauraji, it's your turn, and just only one question and under 1 minute. If you have more questions, just raise the hand.
Okay, sure. No, I mean, Namaste Rajivji. I attended the DC event, and you had talked about their learnings from Ramayana and Mahabharata. One of the key learnings from these epics for me has been that, and there was a question earlier about alliances, but even God incarnations have to form alliances to win the war. So my question is very simple. I wanted to check, if there is any established strategy at Infinity Foundation to form alliances. If there is, is there somebody responsible to do that solely? And then finally, what is the succession plan at Infinity Foundation? As things are moving forward, and it is becoming more and more important for all of us. We are all stakeholders in this. So I just wanted to understand if there is established succession plan at Infinity Foundation.
So, us reaching out to Pan IIT is an example of alliance building. So we can keep talking about third parties. We can. I went to Canada. We have some discussions. I went to, India. There's some closed door meetings with people because right now it's too sensitive. So alliance building, of course, with all kind of people who can help us, including white Americans. We are wanting to build alliances in the United States with white conservative Americans also, including with Harvard Divinity School. So it's not just with Indians and Hindus, but we want to have alliances wherever it makes sense. But the alliance relevant to this conversation has to be with Pan IIT. So here we are. I talked to IIT people in Toronto. I was there for 4 or 5 days. In Boston, that's where I met Mohan. And, then I went to Bay Area, and I was hosted by, a very prominent IITian, and he had a few other IITians. A few of them were very, very enthusiastic. Some of them were not. Some of them were actually left-wing opponents. So we left it like that, and now let's see what comes out of it. And then I went to Washington, D.C. So, we've been trying so hard to, from our side, to do this collaboration with IIT people. Ravindra is the right guy. So, later on, and I don't know how much he wants to disclose because some of it is confidential also, but he's working very hard to create a good alliance between our foundation and the Pan IIT, and let's see where it takes us. So that's all I can say right now. The successor plan, the thing is, we have 4 tracks of work that Infinity Foundation does, and we call them tracks A, B, C, D. So track A has been my work, and I have another 20 books to finish. So that should be all I do, is do those 20 books. But track B is to create successors, co-authors, research assistants, people who are young people. So we have found a lot of them, but as volunteers, unpaid volunteers, they can only do so much work. When we get funding, we bring a person on board. Just yesterday, I got a pledge from somebody who, nothing to do with IIT, just a nice person, lady in Boston, and she said she's sponsoring 5 years, one full-time, one salary, for 5 years. So we're going to convert one of our volunteers into a full-time person. Right now, we have in the United States 3 people on the American salary, and we have 8 or 9 people in India on the Indian salary, and that is the resource that is how much resource we have. We have another 20-30 people that we want to train for doing research. So, and this is not only people who can write books, but people who, some translators, some people are video people, some are social media activists, some people are. So this is what we call track B, which is taking the same principles of research and knowledge that I've been doing and transferring it to a few dozen people. And then track C, we want to expand this into e-learning. We want to expand this knowledge into video, animations, all kind of stuff, which keeps the knowledge into simpler forms. And then track D is social media, people who are influencers in the mass market, in the public. So we are trying to create resources and people at all these 4 levels, from very serious research, which is groundbreaking, which is needed as the foundation, and then more and more simple forms of it, all the way down to simple tweets and social media and little 2-minute videos and whatnot. That's the plan, and we've been on this plan very consistently, doing whatever best we can with the resources we have. And so, the problem is that 30 years ago, actually, we're getting more attention because there was nobody else around. As recently as 10 years ago, we were getting quite a lot of attention, but then so many lookalikes, so many people got into this field, so many, Hindu organization, Hindu this and Hindu that, and all kind of people. So the donors are also spread out, scattered, and we don't do fundraisers. We haven't done a fundraiser per se. We are experimenting, but we are not very good at going around asking people for resources. I thought that since nobody asked me to do this, I did it of my own. I thought there'll be lots of other people, other successful Indians who would want to join out of their own inner calling. But that hasn't happened. People who made it successfully want to keep making more and more, keep adding zeros at the end of their net worth, and they haven't really transformed the same way. So what will be happening in the future is all up for grabs. I cannot say to you what will happen in the future, but we are certainly trying our best to bring more people in, which requires more resources, and create a robust institution that can go from one generation to the next. I should ask you, what can it's like, what are you doing, or what can you do towards this? This is the thing that I would like to ask each person. For as an IITian, what can you do to create this alliance that you talked about? We would love it. And as an individual, what can you do to help our foundation create have the resources, bring in more people? Because while I don't need a salary, Vijaya doesn't need a salary. The point is that many other people do. And so we want to bring in people who are properly paid. Otherwise, we'll just have volunteers and nobody there on a full-time basis. So this is where resources are needed. So I should be asking you guys questions like, what are you guys going to do to provide those resources? Because nothing will drop from the sky on its own,
Yes, I was just about to say, any concluding remarks before you leave? I think we can spend a minute or two. Any concluding remarks for the group? And yes.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you. I think the questions were very, very good, very sharp. My concluding remarks are, I do hope you will read the book. I hope you will get extra copies and give it to other people. But I know Ravindra is working very strategically. So my concluding remark would be, help Ravindra achieve whatever his strategy is, because he's on the right track. He's shared it with me. Help him offline. And we are with him, and would love to continue our conversations in the future. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Question for Vijayaji for public's interest here. How is China able to do it, and where are we failing? What can we do to block this big poison inflow, I guess, into the civil society, both India and American good people as well? What is China doing it?
Dictatorship helps to have that communist machinery. Everybody's aligned. So, for example, in the book, we show how China uses Harvard for getting its infrastructure in place for the social credit system, for example. They use Harvard to train their, in fact, the Uyghur Muslim, the outdoor prison camps. The guys that manage this are Harvard Kennedy fellows. So Harvard looks the other way and actually trains these communist apparatchiks to expand Uyghur Muslim camps. So the China the China conference at Harvard does not talk about any of the Tibetan issue or the Taiwanese or Hong Kong independence movements. These topics are kept away. Whereas if you look at the Harvard India conference, it's always about Kashmir and CAA and Article 370, all of these points. It's mainly centered on this. And the people who represent are also people who go and give depositions to the USCIRF against India. So it's everywhere. The conferences are like this. The academic research is like that. So China, that way, being very focused, they are able to achieve a lot more with the funding that they give. They're able to buy certain technologies, steal the rest of it, hush billionaires, and make sure that if they speak anything negative about China, the market is closed to them. Chinese market is closed to them. So I guess being a communist, having a communist structure helps. The dictatorship helps. But I think India, we are all sold out in exact opposite on the other side. We're all sold out. Our scholars are for sale. Our students are for sale. Our diplomats. In fact, the Indian government spends a whole lot of money training the diplomats at Harvard Kennedy School. And what they're learning is all this. So we are actually using taxpayer money to teach our diplomats. We're also we're bringing in these Harvard experts into the Niti Aayog to like Tarun Khanna. So there are also national security risks, because like say if you take Tarun Khanna, he is a visiting professor at the China Business School with Europe. It's called something. There's a business school that China has in Europe. It's a joint partnership in Europe. And Tarun Khanna, he's at Harvard. He's also part of that business school. Plus, he is an advisor to the Niti Aayog. So these are all connections that one should look at from a national security. So there are many problems. It's a cesspool of problems that. So if you read the book, and the book can be read in, although it's a large book, you can just pick it up from anywhere and read. So you'll get an idea as to how bad this problem is. Even if it doesn't affect you individually right now, it's bound to affect your children, and it's bound to affect your work life in some way.
Follow-up question on that one, a quick one would be, who is the ultimate beneficiary of this whole left gamut? Like, where is this coming from? Is this China? Is this some globalism?
So what we try to show in the last chapter is the globalists. I think there is, in the name of climate change, a lot is happening. I think they're very concerned about the huge population of the world. So one way to do it is to dismantle existing structures, redistribute your wealth and my wealth to the masses so that the masses don't have an uprising, while they remain the oligarchs that control everything. So essentially there's a all what critical race theory, critical caste theory, anti-meritocracy all does is essentially take the resources from people who've worked hard, who are not yet at the globalist level like Gates, but who are doing well in society, to take their wealth, redistribute it to people who are down below, who are essentially the activists that they're using, and shush them down. And then so there'll be a new world order, so that's what the WF calls the Great Reset. So when you hear all these terms, right, the Great Reset, sustainability, DEI, ESG, climate change, these are all loaded words which are trying to bring in a new world order, which essentially is a redistribution of wealth, resources, everything from, and sort of equalize it along with the masses. I think that's where it's all headed.
I want it to be addressed that, are we doing a mistake, or is there an alternative pathway than that of a direct fight, which is more elegant, more ergonomic, and more efficient?
Can I just quickly say that there are lots of things we can do to stop this? For example, we can stop spending taxpayer money to train our people. We can stop for foreign liberal arts schools to come through with the national education policy. We can stop the data mining. There's just so much data mining. If you look at the book, there's huge data mining of Indian polity by Ashoka University, all these people, and Kriya University, just tons and tons, 2,000 villages of Tamil Nadu. I mean, data is being mined from India. and we can stop it. There is a seed database that's Bill Gates is trying to mine out of India. So all these things we can stop right now, even if we don't do anything else. We can stop some things which we are not doing.
Yeah.
We're going to come up with a new book which sort of gives more to this whole IIT issue as to how this whole scholarship has been systematically done. What are the foreign agencies that are involved? Like, for example, not many would know that the French government is hugely involved in dismantling engineering education in India. Yeah.
Wow.
The French Ministry of External Affairs has actually put in money, and actually Harvard comes and hijacks their scholarship and then flies with it. There's a little tough war, amongst them. And then you also have this whole idea of where is all this heading, right? So we as you look at the future scholarship, you look at sustainability and how the researchers in all these STEM education institutions are going to be told by social scientists as to what and how they should direct their scientific investigations. So social sciences, like these woke guys are not only entered corporate in terms of DEI, they're going to enter high education, higher education institutions like the IIT and direct STEM research. So this is where it's all heading. So it's going to affect all of us sooner or later. It's coming into schools. Many of you don't know what is being taught, especially in America, in your schools. There's a lot in name of social and emotional learning. Do you know how your kids are getting sexualized without your knowledge? So these are all coming to your homes. So if you don't take action, right, this one thing might pass. IIT, you might look the other way, but it's all coming to your homes sooner than later. So this I can assure you.
Dhanyawad. So I think we just have only a couple more minutes. So if you can wrap this up, and Vijayji, if you can give some closing comments, any suggestions, anything you want to tell us.
No, thank you all for taking so much time to listen to this, because people look at some of this as something that's not really relevant to the immediate day or weeks ahead. But thank you so much for you guys are all quite aware of what's going on, but even then some of these things happen to be fringe. So on behalf of Rajiv ji and myself, I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to us and help spread the word to whatever extent you can. At the end of the day, it's each one of us. We'll continue to do what we, I told Atul yesterday too, that we'll continue to do what we do, and you guys, can continue to do what you do. But if there is some kind of intersection between that would be great. Otherwise, all the very best to you as well.
Before you part, we should make a community on this instead of just listening today and just disperse. I think we should build this up from here. This is a foundation. There's a lot more to learn, a lot more to learn from each other as well. So I would request Mohanji and everybody here to build a community here. There's a WhatsApp link I sent in this chat. Click that, you can join some of the groups that we have, and then we can converge further and build different topics essentially. Have a follow-up session or two. Ideation in smaller goshtis if applicable, so we can ideate in smaller groups, and we're going to do that in a few at least. So let's do that, and let's build up to reach out to this great two people who have written great stuff. This is modern day Krishna, modern day Gita, essentially. This is guidance to how to navigate our waters in the upcoming years. So we cannot thank enough to both these great people who have written this great book and the great work. They put their own money also on this. So let's do what we can do.